Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 108 of Speaking from the Heart. Today, I'm super excited to have our guest, Bridgit Norris, who's also in the coaching world, joining us. Bridgit has proudly worn the label of a rebel throughout her life. She always stood against the mundane, believing that embracing your inner rebel can empower clients to break free from limitations and unleash their full potential. Through her innovative programs, she guides individuals on a transformative journey, helping them challenge the status quo, find their authentic voices, and achieve extraordinary personal and professional growth. Bridgit agrees that it's time to rebel against mediocrity and step into a life of limitless possibilities. And I have to say, it's great to have somebody on the show that not only aligns with what I do in my business all the way in the other part of the United States, but it just exemplifies the importance of the mission that we are all serving, to not only challenge the status quo, but to remind ourselves that the work that we also put into this comes from us inside. I think that Bridget's interview really exemplifies the fact that it's not about what we do, but it's about how we rebel against some of the things that we've always been told about life and what it's all about, and challenging what it means to even be on the threshold of that change, but making sure that we, the people that are responsible for the work that we're supposed to do overall, lies inside of ourselves. Coaches can only do so much. And whether you feel that you can change your mind about this process or not really depends on how much you're willing to invest in yourself to grow, to lead, and to inspire in so many different ways. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Bridgit Norris. Bridgit, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I am really impressed by some of the things that you wrote for my audience to listen to as your background, because I'm thinking, you have some really creative adjectives of wanting to challenge the mundane and be a rebel. So I'm wondering, what got you into this framework of wanting to be helping others to challenge their mindsets? Because I essentially am getting a lot out of what you are saying with that sort of framework in mind. So can you tell us a little bit about what got you started with maybe doing these sort of things?
Quite honestly, the funny part about it is like, this is how I've been my entire life. I was that rebellious little girl. I moved out when I was 12. This will give you a gauge. When I was 12 years old, and I literally woke up one day and I said, this is not the life that I want. And I want to do things that every other 12-year-old girl is doing. I want to play sports and I want to go hang out with my friends, and I can't do that. So I'm moving out. And there wasn't anything in my mind that I was going to get a no, because it didn't matter. Just didn't matter. So I was very rebellious in that fashion. So when it came to where I am now and kind of revisiting that, I had to remember that, because that is a part of who I am. And that's a part of pulling that out of everyone. Not every person is rebellious in that same fashion, but we all have a little bit of that in us. It's just remembering it and figuring it out. I talk to people all the time. They say, I'm a rule follower. And I'm like, I bet you if we dig, there's some rules that you've broken and there's some things that you've done to rebel. You're just kind of forgetting it conveniently.
I mean, I find it interesting, though, because when I was 12 or 13 years of age, I've always wanted to say, yeah, mom and dad, I'm tired of your crap. I want to move out. And I think every kid had it at that age. What actually forced you to move out?
My mom was a single mom, and we grew up very poor in the trailer park and on food stamps and on welfare. And it was all those things. My mom did the best that she could, but I was like playing mom, right? So she would work at nights and sleep during the day. So I was the one who had to get the brother and sister up for school, and I was the one who had to do homework. And all of those things made me realize that I can't just be a 12-year-old. I want to be a 12-year-old. I want to play sports and I want to have fun and I want to not be this. And I figured the worst thing for me to do, and this applies to every situation, is to know that the situation you're in is bad for you and still stay in it. There was no excuse. And everybody's like, oh, but you were 12. And I'm like, but I didn't, in my mind, that wasn't a reason. That wasn't a reason to hold me back from leaving something that I knew was bad or wasn't going to allow me to grow.
Do you think it allowed you to be able to expand, though, by helping your siblings, even though you weren't the mom, you were playing the mom, but do you think that made a profound influence on who you are?
Probably. I mean, there's always that part of it that I have that in me. I'm the pushy, very aggressive person that's going to tell you like it is, but I also am very giving. And it comes from that spot of I'm going to mom you first and then probably tell you the things that you don't want to hear after.
Hey, if you want to tell me how it is that being a podcast host and evaluate me afterwards, I'm be more than happy to hear that from you, Bridget.
And it's scary because most people don't like that. What's the thing that everybody says? I want advice. Nobody really wants advice. They want to be told what they want to hear versus the thing that you're going to tell them and they're not actually going to do it anyways. That's like the truth of it.
It is. And I always call it in my business getting feedback and being able to accept that feedback from others when we often are not comfortable in doing that. And I think that is really important for the lifestyle that we live, which I really want to branch into what you have shared with me, which is really breaking free of the conventional lifestyle. Because I think that for many of us, we always think that we have to live a certain way. And that even goes into leadership, which for my audience, they know that you are a coach and you help people to break that sort of mindset. So what do you usually find that is helpful for people that you're working with to break free from that convention?
I think when, especially in the coaching world and working with so many people on that level, what you find is the convention has turned into, and it's different as we've shifted in the years, but convention right now online is the online space is dictating who you have to be,
Yes.
how you show up, what you say, what you look like, what you do, what you don't do. All of that has become so conforming that it's everybody wants to just be like everyone else. Everybody wants to make $1 million a month, but deep down inside, that's not their truth. Deep down inside, there are people that want to say things that maybe go against the things that everyone's saying. They want to help people, but they don't care about the money. But yet online, they're being told that that's a bunch of crap. So for me, it was a pushback against all of that. Like, who are you really? And what do you really want? And what does that mean? Because surprisingly, so many people, including myself, lost that. The online space is it's been a great opportunity for everyone, right? We get to meet a ton of people, we get to coach and change lives, but it's also hurt a lot of people in that aspect. And that part of it happened to me. And I'm like, I'm very strong, rebellious, do what I want. How did it happen to me? And then I had to take a step back and go, if it happened to somebody like myself, it's happening to a lot of people. And a lot of people need help getting out of that.
I have some friends myself that I have known started their own coaching and then they had to back out of it because of circumstances that have happened, especially being in the online forum where there is, let's face it, a dime a dozen for the number of coaches that are out there. But do you think there's a chance for it to change? Especially since you do have this unique brand yourself, Bridget, and I have my own unique brand myself where I really talk about having people have relationships, confidence, determination to keep moving forward in their life. I mean, do you think that there's still a need for a coach or even having people realize that they can change that mindset? Because I don't know about you, but my own personal opinion is that if you have a coach by your side, to be able to talk through some of these things that might be too hard to process on your own, you might get a different perspective.
Yes, I think that there's always going to be a need. I mean, that would be like saying there's no need for therapy, and people, of course, need therapy.
Yeah,
and then there's that.
Myself included. Yes, yes.
But then what happens to this is where coaching came in. What happens to the people that are like, I don't need therapy in its formal sense, but I do want and desire to walk through things with people and have all of those things. So I think that that's not going to go away. I think the better that the community gets at not wanting to be like everyone else, like in owning that part of it, the better it is, because what you need isn't going to come from the same thing that 1,000 people online are buying because it's flashy and they're everywhere, right? They're the guru. But people find that that's not what they needed to begin with. It just looks great on paper. And then you get in there and you're like, this is not what I needed. This is not helpful. So the more that we can speak out and say, you actually don't need that. And it might not be even me what you need, but let's help you find what it is. And there's not enough people saying that. It's more about how can I make the money? How can I just bring people to me? even if they're not a good fit, which is a whole nother issue. But
I'm always about having a fit. I even say that's a two-way street. A coach can get rid of a client while a client can also get rid of a coach. I think that always should be part of any sort of agreement. But even with that said, what would you say is your best advice to someone that is trying to forge that new path, given the fact that we live in these conventional times? What would you recommend to someone, especially even if it isn't coaching, just in life in general, whether it's personal or professional? What would be that number one tip that you would give them?
I bring this back to every single time. If you don't remember who you are, or somehow you feel like you've lost who you are, that happens to a lot of people. It happens to women who get a divorce. It happens to empty nesters. You all of a sudden lose who you are. I think before you hire anyone, unless it's something specific that they're helping you establish that, you really need to get back to yourself and figure out what that is. What makes you you? And everybody's always like, oh, I don't have anything special. I have nothing special to offer. It's the same thing as everybody else is offering. It's totally not true at all. And until you realize that, there is never going to be a place of you breaking free. You're always going to be on the hamster wheel of trying to figure out what that is. It's a vicious cycle that only you can break.
Not to get meta with you, but what would be what you would say to answer that question? What makes you different and unique in that regard?
For me, it is, and there is a ton of people that you could say, oh, well, they tell it like it is, they say what it is, and there's a lot of that. But I have a kind of a running joke that I say sometimes is that I'm that person that I'm not going to push you off the cliff, but I am there to push you off the cliff. It's just that I'm holding your pants. I'm going to jump with you. Like I'm going to force you. And most people that hire me say, you're almost too much for me. It's too scary for me to talk to you. But I need that. I want to help you change your mind. But the only way we change our mind is through action. And there's too many people that are afraid to say those things. They're afraid to say that I'm about the action. I'm about the hustle. I mean, oh my God, don't say the word hustle. That's a swear word online. And it's those type of things that make me different. And I had to own them. I'm very type A. I worked in corporate for lots of years in construction. I have a very hard shell. I worked with all men that have lots of things to say and treat women in lots of fashions. And so I looked at that when I started coaching as a negative because I was told that by a coach. I was told you're not feminine enough. And I'm like, so I tried to be that and it didn't work, which made me lose my edge. So you have to know what your edge is.
Well, first off, I have an explicit warning on this podcast because of all the things we talk about. So don't worry, you can use those swear words anytime you want, Bridget. You're good. But
perfect.
But the other thing is, I have to tell you, I've had a guest on the show. Her name is Maya. If Maya's listening to this, hello again. But she works in the construction field also, but she does something unique with photography and writing in giving people blue-collar opportunities. So she's using that as empowerment to help her business. So I agree with you. Don't lose that edge because it's something that is truly important. But you said something that really catches my eye, and I do something similar in my coaching practice is you want to push them over the edge, but you also grab onto them, make sure that they don't fall all the way. And I almost do something similar where I have people write down their goals, but I also want to be part of that goal process because I want to hold them accountable for it, and I know where to push and pull and prod. So with that said, do you know where to push, pull, and prod when it comes to those sort of people? Is there like a standard that you usually use?
No, everyone is so different. And I think how I push you is not going to be, if I pushed everybody the same way I pushed you, it would never work. It actually takes a really good coach to understand and listen and understand where somebody's at and the level of readiness that they're at, because it doesn't matter if I think you're ready and I'm ready to push you, but you still feel like you have 10 more steps before you're even there. If I don't work with that on a level of, yes, I'm not going to let you stay there forever, but give you the space, I'm not going to create the change. You have to be the one that creates it. And so for me, when I say I'm jumping with you, it's because I have long lasting client relationships. This is part of the non-conventional stigma in the online space. I still connect with people from years ago. I want to know what's happening with them. They're excited to message me and say, guess what happened in my life? Those are the things that are important to me, not forgetting someone 2 years from now and just not even thinking about it. So for me, it's totally different. So when I jump with you, I'm fully jumping. For as long as you want to connect with me, I'm riding that parachute down with you.
It is like jumping from a plane, trust me.
Pretty much.
I feel like I've done that many a time, especially being in front of a room and speaking about my vulnerability and my situations that my audience knows and I've shared with you too. And that kind of branches into another topic I really want to explore with you, which is about empowering others. So you kind of already led into some of those aspects of it, but I think that for us to really be able to become the best versions of who we are, there's also has to be some sort of level of empowerment. So I guess for you, what would you say is that ripple effect that people need to have in order for that change to happen so that they do feel empowered? Are there things in your life that maybe you've learned, or maybe you have a situation that you can share that might help accentuate that point too? But I'm curious, what would you say is that effect that people need to create?
I think it's a fully, and unless you have a coach that is aligned with this concept, it's very hard. But you have to understand, I have no power. I literally have no power, and I'm not creating any of it. All I'm helping you do is really open up to the idea of how much power you already have, where it exists, how to tap back into it, how to bring it back, because it's yours. I love the feeling of you helped me do this and you helped me do that. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing anything. You are the one that's taking the actions. You're the one that's taking the steps. You're the one that is realizing how much power you have. And I think that people should remember that and should just own that to begin with. And not saying that a coach won't help you walk back into it, figure out what it looks like, what it is. But at the end of the day, you are doing all the work. So own that part of it and really celebrate yourself for that. Even on day one of any kind of coaching, just look at like speaking. I initially was like, oh yeah, I want to public speak. I hate public speaking. I literally am terrified of it. It's just one of those things I've been terrified of. And I thought it was a path I needed to follow. And I kept trying to push and trying somebody help me find my power in it. It's not for me. It's not something that I want to do. So it's like, understanding that. Do you really want to do it? Like, you love it. You love getting up there. You love telling people your story and speaking, then that's awesome. But for me, it wasn't that. And it's part of understanding and owning what my real power is. My power is not the stage presence. My power is behind that. So in owning which part of that is for you.
Is this the part of the show where you just rip off your shirt and go, yes, I'm Wonder Woman? Is that what is going to happen? Because I almost feel that way when you said that. It's like we find that hidden power inside of ourselves.
I love that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, I think it is because, I mean, for me, sometimes it's ripping off my shirt like, yes, I'm Superman. I got to figure this out. And sometimes I don't have it all figured out, too. I've had plenty of times where I feel that way. Have you ever wondered, though, like, if you did public speak, now that you brought it up, because I'm a public speaking coach myself, do you ever play out in your mind of, if I was that awesome public speaker, would that have changed your trajectory of who you are today?
You know what? I think that if you asked me that question like years ago when I first started, I would say yes.
Yeah.
All these years advanced in both age and kind of where you're at in the coaching, I think no, because it was never who I was truly as a person and never who I was truly as a coach. And I know where my power is now. And I don't think so. I think I would have been doing something that years later, I would have been like, why did I do this? It didn't really lead me to where I wanted to go. Same with people who go to school, become a doctor, and they're like, I don't even want to be a doctor. Why am I doing this? It's that same concept. But if you asked me years ago, my answer would have been different. Now I would say no to that, but because I know, like I've had a little experience.
Yeah. And I think it's trial by error too. And a lot of people that we have, even myself, it's been trial by error. I thought I was going to be an attorney. Thank goodness I didn't, because I would have been probably the worst attorney ever because I've been way too compassionate, probably lost my cases. But I think that we all figure out ways in which we are able to enhance that sort of journey that we have. So if somebody was going through that, maybe they are stuck in that dead-end job, or maybe they are stuck in something that they really didn't want to have, what would you do or say to help inspire them to get on the right path?
Try everything, because I did. When I started, I did not have a clue what I wanted to do. I didn't know really. I just knew I might be a little good at this. I might like this. I've done everything. 7 network marketing companies. I was horrible at network marketing. I owned a brick and mortar fitness company, which I actually loved. That's what turned into me actually coaching. One of my clients actually said to me, you're a life coach. And I'm like, what is a life coach? And then I immediately Googled it and changed my life. But I've done everything. I've done all the things and I don't regret any of it. People say, oh, but you wasted so much time. I didn't waste any time. I realized I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. So I tried it all. Now I can tell you, don't like that. Wasn't good at that. That's not for me. I didn't have those answers before. So if you have the ability and the freedom to try all the things, try it all. Life's too short not to try all of it. Try public speaking. You might love it. You might think, oh, that's so scary, but you might get out there and be like, this is my thing and I didn't know it. Write a book. I mean, try everything.
This is the part of the show where I self-advertise myself and say, yes, please reach out to me for public speaking coaching at contact@yourspeakingvoice.biz. So yes, thank you, Bridgit, for that awesome segue from my own business. But is there something yet, though, you say that you've done everything? And I believe you. I really do. I see it with the energy that you've just shown so far. I really believe it. And I can tell just from that confidence in you. It's part of me that I'm like, damn, I really want that confidence from her too. Is there something that you haven't tried yet that you really want to try?
I really want to write a book.
Yeah.
And I've attempted to think about it so many times. I attempted to start writing things so many times. And then there's all these things that come in your mind that you're like, nobody wants to hear my story. It's not important. Why would I share those things? How is it relevant? I still have all of that because it's something I really want to do, but I'm not really sure how to make it happen. So I find excuses. Eventually, at some point, I'll have to move off of the excuses and just do it. But I think that's the one thing that has always been in there because I like the ability for people to hear or read what I'm thinking, my words, and to be moved by it. And at the end of the day, that's enough. And it doesn't need to be something like #1 bestseller, but just if it moves a couple people, that's enough for me. And I think that that's what I want to do. I'm kind of off the idea of where I used to share all those things on Facebook and all of that, because it was kind of a place for me almost writing a book. But I've moved off of that because social media platforms have changed so much over the years. So yeah, a book.
It's so easy nowadays to be able to do that, though, with self-publishing widely available. And you could even ask ChatGPT to write the book for you if you really wanted to.
I know, that's so scary.
It is scary, and I would highly discourage that. I've had authors on the show already that have expressed why they do that passion, and I guess for many of us, we have to find that inner voice inside of ourselves to really paint that picture of what we want to share with our, I guess with this case, the readers of your book. Now, you have this sort of program where you do revolting against the commonalities. You could change my opinion of this. I almost think of it with my mom's generation being a hippie generation that she grew up in. It's like, yeah, flower power, love, peace. And those were all things in which that was the rebel generation. When you say being this person that pushes against the status quo, what do you mean by that in contemporary society? Maybe you might need to give that definition before you explain what you do to help others.
I love that you kind of preface that, because when you think about like hippie generation, my mom grew up in that too, but they were all doing the same thing, right? They were all revolting in the same exact way. Yes. That's kind of what they did.
Yes.
Now I look at it in the sense of when we revolt, my revolt looks different than yours. And every person that I work with, everybody's revolt is different. And I love that because it's boring if we're all the same and we're all saying the same things and we're all doing the same things. And I'm like, what is it that you want to revolt against? What is the thing? And I always ask people, what is the #1 thing? If you could say it out loud right now, you would say it. And usually in a small group of women, everybody stares at me. Nobody wants to go first. Everybody's like, do I have to? And then as soon as one person's free to say, oh my God, if I could just say this, I would say it, then everybody goes. I'm like, that's the thing. Start with that. That's your personal revolt. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it has to do with your business, your personal life, if it has to do with some sort of charity, whatever it is. People are so afraid to be canceled and so afraid to be deemed as they're saying something negative when really they're just trying to express who they are. I think we have too much of that conformity. So that's like the first thing I love hearing. What's the secret? What's the #1 secret that you want to say that you're just too terrified to say out loud?
I had a lot of people tell me starting out with this podcast, when I told them what I was going to talk about and what I was going to do, they're like, Josh, just don't do it, because you don't want to be that vulnerable out there. People are going to take advantage of you. I have yet to have that happen to me. And yes, I'm doing this as of this recording, which will then be aired later on. But I will tell you that even if that did happen, What would they find out about me that I wouldn't tell them already in person? I think that's so true, what you say about trying to get people to just stand up and speak that truth out loud, because we're often told, no, keep it down. We don't want anybody to hear that. So I love that fact that you kind of do that. Is that coming back to when you were 12 and you left the house? Does that come from that sort of mentality, or does it come from just other learned experiences that you've had in your professional career?
I think it's a culmination of all of it, but I think it started with me just being willing to say the thing that I wanted to say, no matter what. Obviously, when you're little, whatever comes out of your mouth, you have no idea the repercussions of anything that you can say. But for me, I didn't really care. I had a little bit of I don't really care what the repercussions are. And of course, you learn a lot of lessons that way. You make a lot of mistakes when you're young, and you make a lot of mistakes when you're an adult. I mean, we still constantly make mistakes, and that's fine. But I always look at it in a sense, if I make a mistake, but I'm doing it from a place of authenticity, and it's like, okay, I can admit I made a mistake, but this is where I'm at. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with tweaking and turning around. You always say making a decision to say something or do something is 10 times better, whether it's right or wrong, than being stagnant and doing nothing, saying nothing and doing nothing, because that's a choice also. I just choose to move, and I choose to help people move. And if the choice is wrong, then we'll course correct. If it's not and it's fine, then you just keep moving forward and we just keep making steps. But it's from that place of never wanting to be stuck. That's just a word that I always used to use a lot in coaching. Like, you don't want to be stuck, and you're stuck because you're making the decision not to move. And sometimes that is by not just speaking. It's very freeing sometimes.
It is. No, it is. Were you ever stuck?
Oh my God. Yeah. Many times. I think the worst was, I think I was about 4 years into my coaching business. I had coaches of my own. They were directing me in paths that I should not have been following. In my heart, I knew that it wasn't me, but they're the smart ones, right? I'm following them. And I got to the point where I was business coaching instead of doing what I was doing prior. I had a group program. I closed it. I closed the program a month early and closed the business. I did not even coach again for 2 years. I was so unhappy with myself, unhappy with where I went. And then it became the stuck. I'm not good at anything. Nobody wants what I have. What makes me unique? All the way through, I knew what that was. But all of a sudden, I got trapped in the bubble of the online space, and it really hurt me. If I was to pull out the 2 years of journals that I have for that, you would read the same things over and over and over and over and over. And it was always about, why am I stuck here? Why am I stuck here? And it happens. It can happen to anyone. It happens at any time. It's just, how long do you want to stay in that spot? How long do you want to live in the stuckness, for lack of a better word?
The answer is 32. That's how long it took me to finally realize that something needed to change. So sometimes it takes a lot longer than others to be able to realize that.
Yeah, and I think some of it is the tools, and also forgetting the tools that we already inherently have and we own. It's forgetting we can still utilize those. Like, oh, wait a minute. I am this person. I have this, and I lost it. How do I get it back? And then learning new skills. So yeah, I think that it's different for everyone, but I think you experiencing what you did, myself, there's a little bit of ability to now share that and say, you still might have to go through it for 32 years or 2 years, depending on your process. But I'm here to give you some, path the way through that might be helpful, might make it faster for you.
Well, with that said, there's one more question I have for you, since we're almost near the end of our time. And it is, what would you share to my listeners if they are stuck in that might help them to get started back on that path of not only rebelling from that past conventions that they have of themselves or others, and start to explore and empower others? What would you say is really that first step?
I'm going to always bring it back to what I call the unsexy work. It's the non-flashy work that needs to be done. It's not sexy. It's not great. It is the foundational work of really honing. And sometimes, and I use this with clients, I use certain strengths tests and personality tests, because you'd be surprised at the things that come out of those, the things that you remember about yourself, the things that then you can take and apply and go, wow, I am this person. And if that part of it, I always pull people back to the same thing, especially women. Find that 12-year-old little girl and remember her. And who was she? What were the things that you were like, oh my God, I loved that about her? What is that? Because you still own those things. They're inherently inside you. Those are the things that are going to, when you bring them out, and when you remember that, when I remembered I was that rebellious, like, I don't have to conform. I can rebel against anything. I can say or do anything. I've done it. It was like weight lifted off, and the whole world, like, it was like your mind goes poof, holy crap, I can do whatever. And it also, the craziness of not knowing maybe what you want to do, say you want to coach, or not knowing maybe what kind of coaching or what kind of business you want to open or whatever that is, all of a sudden you gain a lot of clarity to where you're forcing it before. You're forcing to try to figure out what that thing is, what the thing that you want to do or try is. It kind of comes a lot more natural.
That's really what this is about, is making it natural when it's unnatural sometimes to do the most extraordinary things in our lives. So, Bridgit, with all that said, I really love the fact that you are leading this sort of life. I always give my guests an opportunity to pitch themselves if people are interested in contacting you or having interest in any programs that people have that are being offered. I mean, I hope at some point you write that book that you talk about, so I can have you back on the show. We could talk about the book. But if people are listening today and they're interested because of just this awesome mindset you have and that you're challenging both women and men to do these sort of things, how can people reach out to you to get connected? I'll give you the last few minutes to pitch yourself.
Super easy for me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's Bridgit Norris, Bridgit Norris. And my son picks on me because I'm old. He said only old people use Facebook, I guess. This is the thing. I utilize Facebook more than Instagram and the TikToks and all the other things, but I am on Instagram. I think the biggest thing is that I don't spend a lot of time on there. So anybody who needs anything ever, my email's open. I'm one of those people where I'm not going to turn anyone away. So if you need something, if you have a question, if you anything, my email is always open. I would just tell people to shoot me an email, and I'm here for that.
Awesome. I'll put all that, including your email that you have, into the episode notes in case anybody's interested in reaching out to you. But listen, I feel a little bit more rebellious after talking to you today because I know for myself, I need to keep doing that, keep giving myself that mantra to keep walking through life. And also have that voice that I always talk about, having that ability to change the world that is always changing. And I think that you are on that path of destiny, regardless of the number of companies, regardless of the number of careers you've had, Bridgit. And for all those reasons, I want to thank you so much for being on Speaking from the Heart and sharing your heart with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I did too. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
I want to thank Bridgit again so much for being part of the show and sharing her heart, not only about what she has been through in her life, but to get to where she is now and helping other people realize that deep down inside themselves, they're able to change anything if they're willing to put their heart, mind, and soul into it. Which always leads to the question, how were you raised growing up? Are you able to challenge the status quo of not only the things that you've been told growing up, but what has changed since then that you have continued to lead that path of least resistance? I think that we get caught up, especially as we get older, in the ways in which we're able to hold on to those well-found beliefs that we know are really the inspiration, the energy, and even the drive, for that matter, to keep moving the needle forward. But what really has changed? You might even have kids now. You might even have a different set of circumstances that face you in terms of life and what it's all about. But how you keep pushing forward and how you keep inspiring others is what really makes the difference, not only in the ways in which you're inspiring yourself, but those around you as well. We have to learn that the online space, especially when we share that kind of conversation, doesn't dictate what we need to do to be able to be involved with not only the rebellious spirit that we have inside of ourselves, but we need to be able to keep on moving that desire needle forward. We need to be able to understand that having the right people, the right circumstances, if you will, to create that catalyst for change has to come from a place in which we're always moving ourselves into that direction that we're wanting to go. It means hiring the right people. It means getting people behind you that not only are going to help you be that rebel, but maybe even be just a nice person overall, whether it's in your personal life, your professional life, whether it's even in your business, just as what Bridget was talking about. But you have to change your mind to be able to address these aspects. And that means actually opening up your mindset. And we've even talked about with other guests and even other episodes about the importance of this. Here's another fine example of somebody that has really proven my point of how you keep moving that needle forward. But the change that we need to create means that we have to work on a level that allows us to create that change. Meaning that if we don't have the right circumstances, the right resources, the right inputs to be able to do that, then we are going to fail. And failure is something that even Bridget and myself would agree we don't ever want to see in our clients. Coaches have no power, though, to be able to make that influence, which is why it's so important to understand that failure doesn't necessarily come from a coach. It can come from the individual that is working with that coach. Now, I have to caveat a few things with saying that statement. If the coaches don't have a good program in which they're methodically moving that person forward into the places or even the individuals that they want to become, of course it's going to create problems. Of course it's going to not only wreak havoc in the things that they're trying to achieve, but of course the actions that they're going to take as clients are never going to be successful. That's why it's so important for my coaches out there that you have a good program that will allow you to not only articulate what you have as offerings, but it gives you a roadmap for that client to understand where the value is. Some of my other coaching friends would even agree. If you are not adding value and you're regurgitating the same material that someone else is already doing, what is it that you're bringing to the table that really allows them to see themselves reach their full potential? Whether you're in the fitness industry, marketing industry, or some other industry in which you're helping others provide a service, you have to realize that networking with other individuals so that you are learning and growing and not only working on your craft, but also inspiring others will help you to move yourself into the direction that you need to be. But even with the coaching piece said, for my clients, you have to be able to understand that the power that you have, that manifest destiny, if you will, of the unlimited potential that you can create through a coach lies strictly on you to carry through. While many coaches would tell you that you have to follow the plan point by point by point, it's always about understanding that there's a level of flexibility that adapts to your ability that you have, because we are not all created equally. And I think that's one thing that coaches miss the mark on. I'm not a rebel. Bridget is the rebel, and I will always go to her if I want to be the rebel. I'm the person that wants to create order from chaos. I want to help people figure out where they want to go in life, find the best versions of themselves, but at the same token, keep moving that needle forward in regards to finishing what they have started. Just as we talked about with the previous interview episode, which I had Ronita Gaynor on, talking about that concept. But the real question becomes, what is it that you want to do to help others to create those authentic lives? It's really simple, and Bridget even said it. Speak the truth. The worst thing you could ever do, whether you're on the client side or on the coaching side, is to lie. To make promises in which you can't keep. And even the worst thing you could ever do is misrepresent what you are bringing to the table. My proposals always bring a set of terms and conditions, but more importantly, the process in which we're going to walk through. It doesn't mean that we always follow that process to an exact T, but yet, every time that we cross the T's and dot the I's, we're making progress in the right direction. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for some clients over others to be able to achieve that. So you have to be patient with the process. Don't immediately throw the towel in thinking that you're never going to make any successful moves or push yourself into the right direction for that matter. You have to learn to not only respect the process, but to speak the truth about that process so that the people that you're working with know exactly what the deliverables are. Don't just stand there and say nothing, though, at the same time. You gotta keep moving forward. And it's usually pretty easy for us to keep moving forward, especially if we have the motivation to be able to do so. We have to gain the clarity and being able to do that. And I will tell you, even from a personal experience, being able to find clarity is usually very hard when you're in the forest, not being able to see one foot in front of the other. It's like a heavy fog, if you will, to keep on going with my weather terms for today. We keep on seeing what's ahead, but yet the dense fog immediately moves inside our path and distorts our ability to keep moving forward as well, because we can't quite get the right footing, remember the terrain that we're supposed to walk, and we need to be able to hold ourselves accountable with a coach to be able to navigate whether it is through a forest or through thick fog. What can you do, especially remembering who you are from the past, in order to create the best version of who you are today? That is the ultimate question that we're asking here. And whether you think that it's a very long, drawn-out process or if it's easy to do with the snap of a finger, you have to realize that sometimes it's easier said than done, and that the hard work that needs to be accomplished takes time. It takes diligence. It takes the persistence to keep moving on, knowing that that memory of what you thought it was long ago can be distorted and warped into something completely different than what it is today that you're trying to achieve. I have said long ago about the importance of figuring out what it means to find your authentic voice. And it means that you have to find your own individuality, your own idea. Which is why I've always said, I love talking to coaches on this show. I'm not equal to what Bridgit is, and Bridgit is rocking it. She's doing things that she would have never ever thought possible if it wasn't for the fact that she wants to help empower others, not only to find that authentic voice, not only to break the limitations that clients might have, but the potential that we all have inside of ourselves sometimes means that we have to surround ourselves with the right people, the right circumstances, at the right time. For so long, we can always say to ourselves that we need to do this and we need to do that in order to achieve what that best version of ourselves are. But when you don't have the right roadmap, and the roadmap itself changes because of enhancements that are done over the years, I can understand why some people get lost along the way. Technology has helped so much to get people back on track, especially if they're on that wonderful road trip, which in a future episode we'll even talk about the importance of why it's needed to have that map, to be able to guide yourself, especially when you're on a cross-country adventure of self-exploration. But hear me out. Even if you have somebody in the passenger side helping you to navigate to where you need to be, that is really a great idea if you think about it. Because sometimes when you get lost, it's okay to have somebody that you can turn to, especially when you need help the most. But when you're a rebel and you're defying the odds and you're pushing the boundaries, not only are you a radical thinker, but you're chasing a dream that of all dreams, you deserve to have. And I think that's pretty damn worthy of you to be able to do that. Because let's face it, with a life that is full of unlimited potential and limitless possibilities, I would want Bridgit by my side, because I would want to be a rebel as well. Finding people's voices in this ever-changing world and creating relationships, confidence, and determination to change not only the voices that we have deep inside of ourselves, dating all the way back from childhood, but helping others to find what their authentic voice is, to shout it from any forest, any dense fog, but more importantly, what they are able to do to help others realize their full potential. Thanks for listening to episode number 108 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.